Hey, just in case I forget, Adam, if you want to read another book that is pretty amazing about World War II, I'm reading a book right now called The Tattooist of Auschwitz,
Tattooist of Auschwitz.
and it's a book from the perspective of a Jewish guy, and when he was put into the concentration camp, he was made the tattooist. He was the one who
Wow.
tattooed the numbers on all the people and his experience there. It's a fascinating book.
This is not. This.
All
Sorry.
right.
One more really quick sidebar. I'm gonna have to think of the title, and I haven't even seen it, but I've heard it's incredible. But there's a film during the last Oscar cycle that was nominated for stuff, and it was about a guy and his family who basically, like, what I've been told is the sort of theme of the film is the banality of evil, where this guy and his family are sort of trying to live a normal life, but he is in charge of one of the concentration camps. So it's like showing his family's day to day of how they live in conjunction with him being at this concentration camp, but like in charge of it, not a member. So it's supposed to be an incredible film, but you just made me think of that with the tattooing thing.
I'll have to,
guys, I don't know if I'm.
I don't know.
I don't know if I'm tough enough to dive into that stuff. I think I'm too weak, and I want to shelter myself from seeing that because it's so painful and ugly. But I know it's important. It's like an ice bath. I need to be able to get tough enough to do it because it'll improve me.
The Zone of Interest is the name of the film.
Zone of Interest. I like them because it makes me think, how could humans do this to each other?
Mm-hmm.
And at least for me, they did that experiment. I think it was at Stanford back in the
the Stanford
50s,
experiments,
where they took two groups of people. Yeah. And I think, we can't let this happen again, but there's an experiment where they did it, and these people that were supposed to be guards turned into just being ruthless. And so anyway, I do it more for me so that I don't turn into a jerk.
Well, I think I agree with Don. I think it's hard to see and watch some of those things. To me, the important thing is to take away the how can this positively impact me and other people, and not let the heaviness of it, like impact you on a permanent level, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've been to the what's it called? The memorial in Jerusalem. And I'll tell you what, if you ever get that side of the world, you need to go do it, because it'll affect you the rest of your life. All right. So with that happy thought, let's get going. So Don, you introduce Adam, you introduce yourself, and then I'll do the intro.
Hit the roadcasters.
Yeah, Scott, all my cards are need to be reformatted. So I'm just letting you know that make sure you hit yours, and I'll reformat my cards.
Got it.
Welcome to another edition of Trail Runner Nation. My name is
I'm
Don
Adam Kimball.
And I am Scott War. And this is the final episode of a 3-part series where we're talking about Ryan Holiday's powerful book, The Obstacle is the Way, The Ancient Art of Turning Adversity to Advantage. Now, as we've been reading this book, we've had these thoughts that, boy, this has a direct correlation to our training and our racing on trails and ultras. And so we thought it's a perfect subject to discuss. Now, Holiday, who is an expert in the philosophy of Stoicism, outlines in this book 3 essential steps to overcoming challenges: perception, action, and will. And those are the 3 episodes in this 3-part series. We've already done perception and action. If you haven't heard those, go back and listen to those. I'll include them in the show notes. But today's episode is around the final section, or will. Now, Holiday explains it this way: if perception and action are the disciplines of the mind and body, then will is the discipline of the heart and soul. Will is the inner fortitude, acceptance of fate, and the relentless pursuit of enduring challenges with grace. Will is the one thing that we control completely and always. So, with that introduction, I want to ask you guys: you've finished the book. What does will mean to you in context of overcoming obstacles? Because that's the title of the book. Obstacle is the way. What does it mean in context to overcoming obstacles, and how does it differ in your mind from perspective and action? Adam, we'll give it to you first.
Dang, I was going to try to pass it to Don first.
Boy, and I was getting a little bit nervous, thinking, I hope Adam goes first here. So, Adam, let's help one another through this. Go ahead. You start with the sentence.
For me, I think when I think of will, I think of the thing. I guess I'm going to steal a little bit from the book here, but a concept that Ryan Holiday talks about is your inner citadel. It's the fortress that you build within yourself to be able to move through and overcome obstacles. And so when I think about the will, I think of that sort of fire inside you that you feed, because if you don't feed it, it's not going to grow. And you feed it and you grow it, and it allows you to work through the toughest of situations, whatever that looks like. I think it's more so, as it relates to perception. I think perception is something that you can kind of shift and change. Whereas when I think about will, that's more something that I think you have to just continuously cultivate and grow. And then I think in my mind, the will is sort of the thing like art. So the first two sections of this book, I think, fall onto the third is how I think of it. So you have to shift and kind of work your way through things. And then the sort of base that gives you the strength to work through the obstacles in the end, I think, is the will. So it's sort of, in my mind, it's the foundation for the rest of it.
I think that it's important, and this is my perception, and maybe it's not yours, but all three of these attributes are something that may or may not come naturally to you. And all three of them you need to work at to become better at. You need to work at perception, how you view situations in your life. Action, you need to work at how do you take action when something or you're in a situation. And will, like you said, it's a continual practice of building the fortitude within yourself to continue. So these things are not stagnant, and you need to work at them. And I think that's one of the great things about reading the book is it brings these things to the front of your mind, and at least reminds me I need to work on all three of these.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, in this will section that we're in right now, there's a line somewhere in there about nobody is born a gladiator. It's something that you have to work at and cultivate over the course of time. And I think that's absolutely true. I do think I would make one sort of slight edit to that. I think there are some people, and we all know these type of people, that are just more inclined to be able to handle tough things. Now, that doesn't mean that they didn't have to work really hard to get to that point. I just think some people might have a little bit of a inclination towards being able to do that. But at the same time, it's absolutely something that you have to cultivate over time and continually work at. And if you don't, it's just like anything. It's like a muscle you don't work. If you don't, I don't think you'll be able to handle and work through obstacles in the same way.
Good. You know, as we've said countless times, you know, trail running is a microcosm of life. You know, the things that happen to us out there in the trail, those experiences relate perfectly and align themselves with the struggles and challenges we have on an everyday basis, whether it's, you know, work or family or just anything that we go through. And so I really love that we can practice that. And these three things become so important as we look at any problem. I think about, as Adam was talking, the thought came to my head about aid stations. You know, an aid station, when a runner comes through, now we've been runners, and I hope we've all been volunteers, because you get to witness an aid station and you can see runners coming through, and you can almost measure, you know, what is their perception right now? What is their action right now? Are they looking for a chair? Are they looking to get out? Are they looking to rehab themselves with either some encouragement or something off the aid station table? And what is their will? Have they lost it? And you can feel that. You can watch somebody exit and go, yeah, that guy's finished and that gal's finished no matter what. There's nothing to stop that individual. And so I think we carry these along and we get to practice these when we're running a distance, and whether it's a training run or whether it's during a race in an aid station, we practice these things, and really reinforces, yes, trail running is a microcosm, and we are experiencing a lifetime in a day. We talk about that, and these subjects and those three disciplines, perception, action, and will, align themselves perfectly with our paradigm that it's life in a day. Yes, Scott?
So, do you agree with Ryan's statement where he says that will is the one thing that we can control completely and always? Now, I'll put a little caveat there. We've just said that you're not going to be great at it out of the gate. It's something you have to develop and be good at. But do you believe? So take that runner that you pictured in your mind coming through the aid station. You're sitting there with the water jugs and the M&Ms, and you're there to help them. And you see some that come through that just have this unbreakable will. They could look like death warmed over. They have blood running down both legs. They're worn out. You can just see the countenance in their face is dropped. But you know that they're going to be leaving that aid station. You know that their will is so strong. But then you see the other person that comes in that doesn't have that will. Why don't they have complete control of that will?
I'm going to have to ask your help on this, you guys, both Adam and Scott, because I pushed back a little bit on that when Ryan Holiday said this is the only thing you have control over, because I don't think it is. I think all three are equal. I think you have the ability to see and take your situation and the perception of that situation. You have control of that because you're thinking about it. That's in the mind. And action, do I sit down or do I just keep moving? That's an action. You have control over that. And will, of course, that's the thrust behind whatever you're going to do with that action. And you need that. So I don't know if you only have control over will. I think you have control over all three, but I'm open for discussion. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Don on that. It's interesting because I like to think of both in life and in ultra running. Again, so analogous, the two of those things. But the mind, the body, and the spirit are three things that need to be in alignment, right? And if whether it's in life or whether you're in a race, if those things aren't lining up, you need to figure out what it is to get them sort of recalibrated. Similarly, I think these three, perception, action, and will, are kind of the same way. Again, sort of like what I said before, I think maybe the way I would like to think about it is with the will, it's sort of, I think the thing that if the wheels fall off everywhere else, then that's the thing that takes over. So you have control over your actions, you have control over your perception and how you kind of navigate that. But I think if your will is weak, you can still fall flat. And so I think that's why I think that's maybe why he's emphasizing it's the one that you have complete control over all of the time, because it can be the one that when everything falls apart is the one that can keep you going.
And so you made a reference to having, what was it you said? The mind, body, and spirit in alignment. And I had this flashback to my college days where I think I watched the movie Big Trouble in Little China 3 times a week for the entire college. There's a scene in there where they're talking about having your mind, body, and spirit aligned. And anyway, so thank you for bringing a smile to my face.
My pleasure.
Adam.
What was your major, Scott? What did you
this
do
was
there?
after this was after hours.
Okay.
Maybe to give us a little bit more understanding of what will is, Ryan has an example of this where Thomas Edison at one point had this big factory that burned down, and there's a conspiracy theory there, by the way, that it was started by the big oil companies. They burned the factory down because that's when they were developing the automobile, and the automobile could have gone electric or it could go internal combustion. and Edison was in the lead, and all of a sudden his factory burned down. So you can take a deep dive into that conspiracy theory if you'd like. But nevertheless, his factory burned down, and millions of dollars, lots of years of hard work. And he famously told his son, go get your mother and her friends. They're never going to see a fire like this again. So this tragedy that happened, he turns it into something that he just accepted. Hey, you know what? This is a heck of a fire. What? Go get your mom. Let's enjoy it.
Yeah, you got to love that the way that he framed that and looked at that, right? Again, I think I feel like I should be getting some kind of like royalties or something for the callbacks here, but it's funny how we'll be in the middle of a conversation and I think about another episode that we've recorded. But if you remember when we recorded our Outlive episode about the book written by Peter Attia, we talked a lot about centenarians, people that are 100 years or older, and their habits, and how they all tend to share an exercise habit deep into, all the way until they pass away, right? Whatever that exercise habit is. I think when you go and look back at some of the greatest performers or greatest minds or whatever you want to say in different facets of history, you find these kind of commonalities, and it's a lot of it has to do with will, a lot of it has to do with strong-mindedness, really good ability to change perception when needed. But I think it's just amazing when you hear these stories about these iconic figures from the past, and I hear that and I just think Thomas Edison would have been a great ultra runner,
No doubt. And I think you could take any situation. We could take his right now and break it down to those 3 disciplines. But before we do that, just about any problem that we come across, we can apply this rule. His perception was, my goodness, this is an amazing fire. Go get your mother because we've got to witness this together. That was his action. And his will was, we're going to come back to work. A bunch of junk.
Right.
We lost a bunch of junk, he said, and we're going to go back to work and make it bigger and better than ever. And that was his will. He didn't sit down and say, well, it was a heck of a run and we got sabotaged by somebody evil. What he did was say, okay, if that's the case, here's what I'm going to do. This is who I am. You'd put me against that, I'm going to become bigger and better. And so let's take any situation that we're against, maybe a bonk on a run, maybe a financial piece, maybe, any piece in our life, and apply those 3 principles or disciplines. And what would a real winner do? What story would you want to write about yourself when you came across this? Chapter 1, here was my perception. Chapter 2, here was my action. I just kept going, and I changed my nutrition. I fed myself. I drank some electrolytes, and I moved through. That was my action, and my will being strong. I persevered, and I came out the other side. This too shall pass. And what a wonderful story. So you could take your whole life, apply these 3 disciplines, and come out with an amazing story.
Thanks for joining this episode. Don just put a bow on it. That's all we need to talk about. Wait, well done, Freeman.
18 minute.
That may be the shortest episode we've ever done.
Well, heck, hey, Brian, can you move that to the end? Because obviously I shot that too soon.
No, actually, that just brought up something else too, Don. As I was sitting there listening to that beautiful synopsis you just laid out for us, I think another thing when it comes to will is, I think when you hear stories like that, right, you think, wow, this is incredible that he responded in this way. But I think there's a very good chance, probably an almost certainty, that at first he had a different reaction and he maybe mourned what was happening and thought, what am I going to do about this? And then responded afterwards. And so when I think about will, I like to think of it as sort of a bend and not break thing, instead of it's not I'm always up here, I'm never going to let anything change how I feel about it. It's not like a toxic positivity, no matter what, everything's fine. It's okay, this has happened. This is a tough situation. Now we've got to move forward. And so I think that's an important part of it, is that I don't think it necessarily means you just have to be hardcore all the time and work your way through everything. I think you can say, okay, this is a bummer, but now what am I going to do and how am I going to bounce back?
Boy, Adam, to that point, can we always be up top? I don't think it's possible, right? You've got to give yourself an opportunity to go ahead and cycle through the process. You've got to go ahead and feel some of that, strategize when it's down, and then climb up out of it. I don't think a life is good to always be push, push, push. And can you be even effective? Push, push, push. I think, like sleeping and waking up the next day, there needs to be rest, strategizing, and then then the action can be taken with
Yep.
will.
Well, I think that comes back to perception and something that we learned from Tosh, right? You have something go bad to you. You stubbed your toe, you have a blister on your foot, and your initial reaction can be a pity party or anger or frustration. But in the book, he talks about perception. Let's turn this, the way that we're thinking about this, into a different place and look and see, what do we have control over? What don't we have control over? Now let's formulate a plan for action. And now, and we need to have the willpower to actually take that action and follow through with it. So I think that it's a 3-part process.
And you bring up Tosh, for those that may not have listened to any episodes or discovered Brian Contosh in his amazing endurance athlete and rode a 200-mile runner, a 100-mile runner, rode across the Atlantic with the team and faced adversity. A great story. And go back and find some of his and become affected by his positive will that he demonstrates. And so really a great guy, Brian Contosh. Also a member of the 2020 slowest known time Western States finisher for our group that went out there. I want to put that plug in there too.
A little SKT, huh?
He's a stoic. I bet you he's a stoic.
Yeah.
No doubt.
That's awesome, guys. I was also.
Hey, I want to talk. Oh,
Wait.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Scott.
One of the things I love about these conversations more than anything is it just gets my wheels turning. And as you guys say one thing, it leads me to another thing. And again, I think back to what Don was just saying about we can't always be up here. Life kind of has its ebbs and flows. And I think as it relates to that and will and willpower in general, I think it's kind of like how you have to think about how you got to pick your spots, right? There are times when you want to exhibit that will and use it and get the most out of it. And it's not for deciding what you're going to have for breakfast, And so I think in addition to, being in control of this, I think the manner in which you employ it is also equally important.
Boy, before Scott says his brilliant comment, you made me think of something, Adam, is that we only have so much to give, almost like, a battery. There's only so much energy there. And if you choose to spend that energy on negativity, you can spend your focus energy anywhere you want. So if you identify something that is costing you productivity, that isn't progressing in the direction you ultimately want to go, then get rid of it. Put your energy, your focus, your time towards your end goal. And so that's your comment made me think of that.
I love that.
And
Scott.
And what do you have control over? Put your energy to those things that you have control over, because a lot of us sometimes get in the rut of putting energy into things that we can't control and worry about it and put too much effort and emotion into it. But I wanted to get to, he introduced a saying that I had never heard before called amor fati. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's I think it's Latin for loving one's fate, which he says, by accepting reality as it is, we free ourselves from suffering and frustration. So how does that play into, you're on a long training run and things are not going well, your stomach's not doing well, you don't feel energy, your legs feel heavy. How do you love that situation?
Well, since I just said that you only have so much energy to put into one direction, and how do you want to spend it? If you want to spend your energy thinking about the awful, catastrophic spot you're in, how much your legs hurt, your stomach, if you want to spend your energy there, you can. because it's the path of least resistance. It's easy to identify. Your body's giving that directly for you to listen to, but to take that energy and putting it towards solution, figuring out, how do I get out of this? Maybe getting out of this is slow down and quit trying to catch the person in front of you. Or maybe it is quit trying to race yourself, quit trying to race your watch. I mean, really try to put things in perspective, bring yourself back to baseline, feeling good, and then progress. But part of that story that you write about your life, or maybe about that race, was, boy, things were terrible. It didn't look like I was going to finish, but because I had a lot of ingenuity and I was creative, I changed this and this and this, and all of a sudden, bam, I'm back at it. And so that's how I saw that. Scott,
We've referenced this great book. I think it's one of Adam's favorites. I know it's one of my favorites. Called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, who was a prisoner in the concentration camps in World War II. And I think as you read that book, you find that there were people that were optimistic. They went in there as prisoners, and they had this optimistic idea that by Christmas, I'm going to be out of here. By Thanksgiving, I'm going to be out of here. And those were the ones that failed. They're the ones that died of despair. And Viktor Frankl said that he didn't have that expectation. He had this amor fati. He loved the position he was in. I don't know if he loved it, but
accepted it. Yeah,
but
he
accepted where he was. He accepted where he was and made the best of the situation. So I want to go back to what you said, Don. When you're out there on a run, or pick whatever situation in life, and you try to be optimistic, and this is where I get in trouble in my own personal life. I like to think I'm an optimist, and I think, oh, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. I'll get through it. But I need to love what I'm doing right now. So if you're out on a run and your legs are heavy, your stomach is going south, rather than saying, it's okay, a mile down the road, I'm going to be fine, I think you could get in trouble, because a mile down the road, you're not fine. And that starts affecting your willpower. I think that you need to actually embrace being out there and say, you know what? There could be a situation where I couldn't be out here running today. There's people that can't do what I'm doing today. There's people that don't have the trails that I see every day when I go out on a run. So despite I'm having a bad time, I need to look at the overall perspective, or the perception. So I just wanted to correct that there. I think that we can get in trouble by saying things will get better a mile down the road, and when they're not better down a mile down the road, then you start really spiraling down a hole you can't get out of.
Good point. Adam, you had a point. I want to bring this up real quick before we hear what you're about to say, that instead of saying, I'm going to be better in a mile, I think we should think, what do I need to do right now to be better? Making a right now action, not I project in, next hour, I'm going to be better. Forget about that. What do I need to do? What action step do I need to take right now to improve my situation right now? And if we do that in real time, all time, we're going to be better.
Yeah,
Adam.
Reference part 2 of our 3-part series. That's exactly right. You have to take action. You have to do something.
Yeah.
Ahead,
so
Adam.
I think it's the taking action. I think it's the acceptance of where you're at. To Scott's point about not saying necessarily this is for sure going to get better, but just saying, okay, this is what's happening right now. Taking the action, and then as you kind of work your way through it, recognizing that, opportunity lies in adversity, right? I think they even say that in this section. And one thing that I will tell the athletes that I coach a lot is, if they come to me and they had a workout that the wheels fell off and everything went poorly, one of the first things that I often say to them is, great. And then I explain, obviously we wouldn't have drawn it up this way. I wouldn't have drawn it up for you to have stomach problems, for you to bonk, for you to do X, Y, Z. But doing that is training your will, helping you problem solve, helping you take action when you need to take action, and helping you recognize that there's all these things within your control and there's things outside of your control. And those are the things that prepare you best for race day. And so while you wouldn't say, I want this to go terribly or intentionally make it go terribly, when things happen like that, it is a great preparer and a great way to get yourself in a position to have success when it actually matters.
As you're talking about that, I just thought of a great reference. I'll make a note and put it in the show notes. I'm sure regular listeners to this podcast know that we love that video by Jocko Willink called Good. And I'll reference that. Go watch that video because that's exactly what he talks about. Part of this amor fati is also what can you learn from the situation you're in. So accept it, love it, and then what can I learn from what's going on right now?
And what I learned from, and I listened to it on Audible, it's available there as well. When I listened to that book, I had as many good thoughts that came directly from the book and other thoughts that just came to me that as it made me think of other things. And then I'd have to rewind a bit because I missed something because it made my brain go in a different direction. When you mentioned that a moment ago, Adam, about, so the run doesn't go the way you want, to Scott's point, Jocko Willink, good. So what was the good in that? So every run, and this is what I wrote down as I'm listening to the books, an abstract thought, every run has an impact of some kind. It's going to, whether it's good or bad, there is a contribution. There isn't any neutral runs. You're either going to improve your cardio, maybe you're going to improve your speed. Something is happening. It's your choice how you work it. Maybe you're going to get mental toughness. Maybe you're going to get wisdom. What did that run contribute? Or did that run, was it negative? Did it have a negative impact and reinforce mediocrity? Did it reinforce you have poor form and you're out there just rehearsing that? Did it reinforce negative thoughts that you have? I'm not a runner. I need to lose some weight. I've got this bad calf. What are you doing with that run? It's so important to put positive thoughts, a positive impact with every run that's out there. So this is the thought that came to me. So don't sabotage yourself. If you're in a bad spot, bad things are happening, don't rehearse that. Get out of it. Do something different. In fact, I would even say it's best to, throw your shoes over your shoulder and hike it back in, because don't reinforce negativity. Do things that are positive. If it's going bad, then it's bad.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, I think that I was going to follow up on something Scott said before, and I think what you just said there segues perfectly, Don. What I was thinking about, Scott, when you were talking about sometimes you can get yourself in trouble when you think, I'm just going to have positive thoughts, this is going to get better in a mile. I think kind of similarly to what we talked about before with like employing the will at the right time, I think the positivity and the framing and the perception is obviously very important, but I think when you employ it is also very important. So sometimes in the moment, you have to have the amor fati of, okay, this is what's happening. I need to address these things. And then maybe it's in hindsight, after you're out of it, you've realized the carnage, and you can say, okay, now what positives can I take away from this? How can I build? How can I grow? And what can I change the next time so that this doesn't happen
again? Good stuff.
So I think as we've kind of alluded to, will takes practice. It takes preparation. It takes effort. How do you guys prepare mentally for something that you're going to be experiencing? So, you have a big race coming up, or you have a long training run that is, it's going to be 102 degrees outside, and it's an uphill training day. How do you prepare mentally for those inevitable obstacles that you're going to incur?
When you ask that question, it instantly popped in my mind is, preparation meets opportunity. And so if that's going to be the day, I've got to make sure I hydrate before I go out. I've got to make sure I bring some type of fuel with me. I've got to wear the exact, set of running short shirt that's going to help me with that and give me positive experience out there. So I think that just understanding the risks, bringing tools to defend yourself so that when you're out there, you say, you know, everything's aligned. I've got everything that I need to have. And the only thing left is really my perception here, because everything else is in my favor.
So you're saying to prepare mentally, you prepare physically or with the physical tools. You know that you've hydrated properly. You know that you have the right gear on. You know that you have water bottles filled with electrolytes. You know that you've prepared physically and tactically as well as you can, and so that helps you mentally.
It removes the I wish I would have when I'm out there. I failed because I didn't prepare properly. No, I went to bed early. I've hydrated. I've done all those things we talked about. So I eliminate that from my excuses that I can pull on. That now it's to my will. I don't say, I made some poor decisions. That was unwise. Nope. The only thing left out for me to finish my goal is me. It wasn't choices. It was me. And I think that makes us
Okay,
tougher.
so
We need that.
I'm gonna flip this on its head. What if you didn't do those things to prepare, but you still have the event?
I deserve what I get.
So
I deserve what I get.
So you know that you didn't get enough sleep the night before. You know that you didn't do, this, and this. You know that you should have bought a new pair of shoes, whatever the case is. Do you use those as excuses, or do you still go out there and prepare yourself mentally with the will?
Well, I'm just gonna pull to Julie Fingaro, a mentor of mine, at least in this running world, when she said, "Don't sabotage yourself. You sabotage yourself." And so I try to stay away from that. Adam, you had something to say.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. First of all, what Don was saying relates perfectly to the mind, body, and spirit. He's taking care of the body so that his mind can be ready to take on what comes. But if you were, to your point, Scott, if you were to flip that on its head and not get enough sleep, not hydrate, do all those things, then as soon as the run starts, my mind goes to, that stuff has already happened. Now there's nothing you can do about any of those things. Now what can I do moving forward? So the perspective has to shift from, not from I messed up all these things, but that's in the past. Now I'm standing right here. What can I do to try to have success in the next couple of hours?
I like that, Adam. So you and I show up to the trailhead. I sabotaged myself. So did you. But you spun it on its head and you put it in a positive way. I'm going to work through this. I'm going to write my story out. Yes, self-sabotage, but victory. Me, self-sabotage, failure. Bad story, good story. I like your story, Scott.
True to Stoicism, what do you now have control over? And do you have the what is it? Amor fati? What is it? Amor fati. Do you have? You're in that situation. You don't have any control over what you did, but you can still be grateful for the situation that you're in. And now, what do I have control over to go? So maybe it's, I'm not going to run as fast as I was going to run. I'm going to slow this training run down. I'm still going to get it done, but because I didn't prepare for it by doing X, Y, and Z, I still have control over how fast I'm going to run. I still have control over, these three things that can still make this a successful endeavor.
Yeah, and no, go ahead.
I
was just going to say my answer to what Scott originally asked about how do you mentally prepare yourself is basically exactly what Don described. And we were talking about this earlier. What Don described about his boot camp experience, where he told himself, as long as I can be in control of my tongue moving back and forth in my mouth, then I'm good. As long as I have control over that. Kind of similarly, when I approach something that I know is going to be really tough, I try to put myself in a headspace of embracing whatever comes. Just being in that like mentally flexible place to say, I don't know what's going to happen today. It might be flawless. It might be the wheels completely fall off, but embracing whatever, kind of the amor fati, right? Just getting myself to a mental space of saying whatever comes, I'm ready for it. And I think just going in with that, setting that kind of expectation to me, for me personally, makes a huge, huge difference.
One of the things I wrote down that I heard, that I listened to, that I wanted to bring up to you guys. I don't have the closing comment on this at all. Only an opening line is, the brain is like a muscle. It can be trained and strengthened. And I wanted to open that topic up with you guys, who obviously have trained your brain and you've strengthened it. And I'm interested in your thoughts. Scott?
Well, there's a great opening story that Ryan talks about, Abraham Lincoln. You know, we all think of him today as one of the greatest presidents of the United States, but he had a pretty tough life. He was strengthening his brain, and the way that he viewed all of the failures and all of the challenges that he had in his life was, this is going to help me become better, so that when the time came where our nation was in civil war, that he was able to lead the country and be the great leader that he was. He was able to use those experiences. And back to something that we said about amor fati is, what can you learn from what I'm going through right now? How is that going to make me better? So we've all had this, whether we read the book by Ryan Holiday or not. We have an experience on the trail. We have a big bonk. I can remember the first big bonk I ever had on a training run. I was like a half mile back to my car. I only had to go a half a mile, and I had to sit down on a rock and just sit there, and I couldn't move. And I was thinking, okay, how did I get into this situation? What do I learn so that this doesn't happen again? This is not fun. And I think that's where you learn from your experiences. That's how you build your brain muscle.
Yeah, I'm also really glad you brought up Abraham Lincoln, because again, another incredible example of a historical figure who went through so many tough things and emerged successful in so many of them. But I'm actually gonna take a little different approach to that. I think they talked about it in this book, just about how Abraham Lincoln had severe depression. He had a lot of like family things, that family struggles and stuff as well. And I think sometimes when we look at these people that have done incredible things, you sort of look at the highlights, right? It's like the highlight reel. Wow, you did this person did this, and this. And you don't necessarily see all of the struggle and the downside and the things that they had to work through to get to those things, and maybe even after those things still had tremendous struggles that they had to work through. And I think it's important to just recognize that we're all human, and we're all trying to strengthen our will and work that brain muscle and become better equipped to handle tough things. But we're also human beings, and we're going to fall short. We're going to, be upset with how we handle situations. But the important thing is to get back up and get at it again, and really prove to yourself what you're capable of.
It makes me
that
think
reminds me of a that reminds me of a reel I just saw, and I can't remember. I think he was a football player, but he was in the post game press conference, and some press guy asked him what it felt like to lose that game or something like that. How did and the athlete sat there for a minute, and he said, last week you asked me the same question. And he says, but you're asking the wrong question. He said, in sports, there's failure. And so we can't look on failure as a negative. What we did last week or what we did this week and failed at is going to help us win the next time around. And he says, you're asking the wrong question. There's so much failure in sports that is the fuel. Those are the experiences that help us do better and become better. I'll see if I can find the reel and, of course, include it in the show notes. And I'll send it to Don's text, just so, because he doesn't read show notes.
I think of this part of the conversation and reflect back to the three critical disciplines: perception, action, and will. And this one, the comment I'm making, is going to roll up to perception. Did this happen to me, or did it happen for me? And I think even bad things that occur, a bonk on the trail that Scott's talking about, did this happen to me or did it happen for me so I could learn a lesson that I need to sleep before a big run? I need to bring fuel. Did it happen to me or for me? And if it happened for me, I've learned a lesson. And I've learned to recognize when something's happening to me so I can make a change in real time on the trail. It happened for me because I realized I better bring a jacket if it looks like it's going to be inclement weather. There's, to me, for me is a great saying that regardless of what it is in life, whether it's personal or on the trail, there's two yous and four yous everywhere. We need to recognize them that way and not just walk around thinking, why me? Who's that penis character that had maybe was it, who's that? Maybe it was
Charlie
Winnie
Brown.
the Pooh. That
Charlie
guy
Brown.
That always, oh no. No,
Oh,
they had
Eeyore.
the cloud
Eeyore,
over
the
his
donkey.
head.
Oh, Eeyore,
Eeyore.
yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to be Eeyore. It's taken almost 700 episodes for Eeyore to come up, Scott. We've done it. We're done.
Winnie the Pooh coming in hot.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to ask you, Adam, as you coach, I bet you that these principles can often play very heavy or play a big part in your coaching. How do you coach someone through these principles of perception? How do you look at what you're going through and split out what can I control, what can't I control? Coming up with an action plan and then building the will and the resolution to keep going. How do you coach
Yeah,
that?
that's a great question. Ultimately it's kind of, so when I work with somebody, there's a few things that we're always trying to achieve. One, having fun, right? Like the whole point of us going out and doing these things is to bring joy to our lives in one form or another. Two, to grow as a person and really like go after big goals, realize what you're capable of. And then three is just to become a stronger, more resilient person. I think those are like, I'm always working from that kind of scale of things, right? And so I learned a long time ago, just from experiences with great coaches I wasn't as big of a fan of, that really what it comes down to is understanding somebody's personality. I think coaching the same way to everybody is useless, and so it really comes down to understanding somebody and their motivations and what drives them. And I think once you understand how somebody perceives things, how they take action, and whether or not they have a strong will to sort of build from, then you can start to lay the groundwork of, okay, how do we go from here? And so a lot of times with perception and action, those are easier to coach because it's helping someone understand, okay, it's just like what I said, had a terrible run. Okay, how can we look at this in a positive light? What can we take away from this? What actions now can we take next time to make you better? And then the will, I think, more than anything, experience is what builds that. Just like what we were saying before with Don brought up the brain being a mental muscle, you have to flex it in order for it to grow. And so I just like to get people in situations, whether that's a training run, whether it's a race, whatever it may be, get them in situations where they are inevitably going to face obstacles and then have to problem solve and work their way out of that. I think that's where you really see the growth. And then it's amazing when you've worked with someone over the course of a certain amount of time, you can start to see that will growing and that person getting stronger and being able to handle more things. And I saw it with myself throughout my running journey, and I see it with the people I coach as well.
I love what you said at the very beginning there. Have fun. Whether it's running, whether it's life, whether it's your career, have fun. And as soon as you said that, a face popped into my head. A local runner here that Don introduced me to, Matt Lambert. And every once in a while, he lives up in Auburn. Every once in a while, I'll bump into him. And I've never seen him not smiling. Never. And I think that is one thing that you can always control And I think that rolls into your willpower. It rolls into how you perceive your situation. This is supposed to be fun. If you're out running 100 miles or you're out running a 25K and things are getting bad, think, hey, you know what? This is supposed to be fun. And I think that can help with all three of those. It can help you change your perception. It can help you say, okay, what am I going to do now? And your willpower to continue or to persevere. I think that's just put a smile on your face and have fun.
I want to throw a word of caution about will. Just good conversations have opposing views, and I think of these disciplines like a recipe. You know, you've got your perception, action, and will. And will is like salt in the recipe. If you've got a ton of will or a ton of salt in this recipe, you're going to ruin it. You've got to have the right amount, and it's got to be measured. You know, and so will isn't everything. And to be a successful trail runner, I think you need to have humility. You have to respect the distance. And when you think my will push me through this, and you can't outthink physiology. You know, there's things that are going to knock you down and take you out, and you've got to respect the distance, respect your body, respect the pace. You've got to respect the other trail runners. It's a symphony, an orchestra. Help me say that, Ryan. Fix that. To be able to put it together to make it all gel and work properly. So these things need to be measured. Will isn't everything.
I just have to mention this because you brought up.
Well, hang on real quick.
I just have to make, again. You want me to say that again?
No, I just have to make. I love Don's analogies. He's over there baking a cake with Stoicism as the ingredients.
Is it?
It can't just be. You got to make. I love it. Go ahead.
No,
Go
Don,
ahead,
is it weird that when you were talking about that recipe, I was like, well, if you're gonna run in 100 degrees tomorrow, maybe the extra will is not a bad thing. Get a little extra salt in there, you know.
Sometimes salt is good, right? I mean, a little piece of jerky with some extra salt on it. You know, sometimes that's.
I also had to mention, just because you brought up humility. There is an awesome quote from Mike Tyson from The Obstacle Is the Way, but the quote is from Mike Tyson, where he says, "If you're not humble, life will visit humbleness upon you." And I just love that so much because I think it's absolutely true.
And we said that earlier, not to compete with Mike Tyson, but one of the things we said when TRN started is talking about the community is the trail qualifies its members or her members. You know, because there's not a lot of people out there that are part of our community that are negative, that are pessimistic. You know, the trail qualifies its members. It puts you through some hard things and spits you out the other side and improves you a bit, polishes you a bit, takes what you have and increases it. And so that's I think that's something that I love about the trail, that she's working on us too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we often talk about, especially at the beginning of every episode, how this makes us better human beings. I want to ask you guys, if it's not too personal, what are some things in your personal life, whether it's relationships or hobbies or other hobbies or professionally, that have helped you as you've read through this Obstacle Is the Way? How have you used this to help you in your non-running lives?
Well, you know, I'll lead, Adam, and just say, you know, how much time do you have? You know, we can look at anything that happens and call this a microcosm of whatever it is out there in the macro and so many places. But I will say, at this moment right now, this conversation with you guys about this stuff, where would that ever have happened anywhere? One place, the trail, running with your trail buddies out there, male, female, doesn't matter. It's the moment of these introspective conversations where facades and egos are kind of left at the back of the car, and we just get to move down the trail and explore ideas and not have any preconceived conditions or judgment. It's just, that's what it's done for me. And these conversations are unique. I love them. And I just hope they keep going. So thanks, Adam, for joining us. This isn't a close, but thanks, Adam, for being here. You add
right back at both of you. Scott, my answer to that is I'm going to bring it all the way back to the first section in perception. I just think so much of life is about perception, right? And I think we can get into, and everybody has lots of things that they're going through. There's no, I think as humans, we can kind of get into a situation where you judge things based off of what you know, right? Like, so someone's going through something tough, you might think to yourself, that's not that tough, I've been through worse, but you don't know what they're going through because they're in their shoes and they're experiencing what they're experiencing, and vice versa, right? And I just think that so often, I should speak for myself, so often I can find myself in situations, and you guys know me, I'm an optimistic guy, but sometimes I can be working on something, a training run, something career related, and I can get too honed in on that and not see the bigger picture. And I think having the perception to say, kind of like what we said before, making sure that you're always enjoying this, seeing the fact that if you're not enjoying it, take a step back and say, hang on, this is supposed to be something that is bringing joy to my life. If it's not, we need to reevaluate. And just recognizing that, like, life is such a gift, and all of these things we're able to do are such a huge blessing that we need to just, sometimes get out of our way a little bit. Sometimes we're the obstacle in the way, and just recognize and have our perception tell us that our life is pretty good, and we've got to focus on the things that are really adding a lot of value to our lives, and then kind of strip away the things that are, leading to negativity or unappreciation or whatever it may be.
Adam, you have the title for your new book. Don't be the obstacle in the way. There's your new title.
Don't come for Holiday.
Is there a book? Is there a book out there titled "You Are the Obstacle"? It might be. As you said that, it gives me a chance to repeat something, and I've said a countless number of times, and it's one of the few things that I know, so I repeat it, is that perception. If you're the only person rolling into the aid station that thinks you should quit, then you probably shouldn't. We see you, we see what you look like, we see that you're capable, and we are here to encourage you to move to the next aid station. If you're the only person that thinks you should sit down and cut your band, then you probably shouldn't. Because if you need to, it's going to be obvious to you and others.
Before we move off of this,
I want to give an example.
No, Scott, I just wanted to hear your answer to that if you have an answer.
I do. And I'm thinking about the Trail Runner Nation podcast. We started this thing almost 13 years ago, and it would have never started had somebody taken action. And I give that action to Don. We're out on a run talking about, we're sick of listening to music on the runs, and there aren't really any podcasts about trail running specifically. And so Don says, well, let's start one. And I'm going, but we don't know anything about it. And he goes, that's okay, we can learn, and so we took action and we started the podcast. And then a few months down the road, we start, feeling a little like we don't have episodes planned, and the willpower comes in. The will. Don says, no, we need to publish an episode every Friday morning. Every Friday we need to publish an episode. And we go, we don't have an episode. That's okay. Let's just get on and talk. And we've been very fortunate over the years as we've done this, that we've really never have a shortage of great guests like Adam Kimball to come on. But I think that's a great example of how this perception, action, and will. You look at podcasts as a whole. I think the statistic is that 80% of them fail or quit after like 5 or 10 episodes. And we're sitting here at almost 700 episodes. And I don't say that in a bragging way. I say that as a testament to following these principles of having action and discipline and will. So that's my example.
I love that. And congratulations to both of you on having such a successful show that people love to listen to, and for bringing on such awesome guests like no, I'm just kidding.
That's what it's all about, honestly. Don and I have a conversation almost weekly, we think, can you believe the people we talked to this week? No one would listen to Don and me. We're just very fortunate to have great guests that know a lot and are willing to share their
that's
wisdom.
exactly what a humble, successful person would say, Scott.
Cut that out of there, Ryan. We want to keep that. Just roll that on a loop somewhere, and we'll trade it between us on text.
Yeah, of course.
Thank
Well,
you.
if you've listened to all three of our episodes about this book, The Obstacle is the Way, The Ancient Art of Turning Adversity to Advantage by Ryan Holiday. If you've listened to all three and you haven't bought the book yet or the audiobook, boy, I don't know how you've done that. You had a lot of willpower to not go buy the book. We did not do the book justice. You need to go through with a highlighter and with your note-taking device. I have not only a hard copy, but I also listen to the audiobook, but I have a hard copy and I have notes in here underlined. It's just such a good book. This is a book that you need to go back and reread.
And I'll make this observation and promise, actually, that not only will you gain from his words of wisdoms that have been borrowed from others before him, of course, but you'll also create your own, and you'll apply it to your own life. There's so much in there that between the lines that you're going to get, as well as the lines themselves. So get out there and get it.
Yeah, again, I think I said this last episode, but I just want to encourage anyone that's listening to this to talk about it with somebody. Because I feel like the best insights are always extracted from those kind of conversations, which is why I enjoy having chats with the both of you so much. But yeah, talk about it, share those ideas that stuck out, and see what comes of it.
If you're looking for a coach, Adam Kimball, you've got some coaching going on over there. If you like the philosophy, you like what you've heard, he may have some openings. I don't know, Adam. What have you got?
Yeah, I've got a good group of athletes right now, but friends of Trail Runner Nation, there's always room for that. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, adamkimball.com is the best way to do it.
Good.
And he wrote a book that has some a log book that you should get. It's unlike any other log book that you've ever had, whether it's digital or otherwise. What's the name of it?
Yep.
I forgot.
Chasing Twilight. Yep.
I wrote that. Shelf.
I wrote that with a couple other former guests of the show, Jim O'Brien and Connor Crouch. And it's basically just sort of our random thought. Like we basically journaled after runs, and it was sort of the things that the ideas that came about while we were running, which are always some of the best. And then there's space for you to write your own thoughts as well. So it's a running journal that also has some prompts and some ideas from us to inspire you a little bit.
What a great conversation starter at the trailhead. When you lead off on your morning run with the group, you can take one of those thoughts and make it your own. I like it.
Well, go get yourself the book, read a little bit of it, listen to a little bit of it, get some topics, and then grab a good friend or two and go out and run.
Mas. All right.
I think there's getting a longer delay every time.